I actually want to get a little deep into this trade talk because I think there's misinformation, misunderstanding, or just people don't know what's being talked about. There's too many acronyms that start with T, right? That's the main problem. Let's work through this, and then let's figure out where we are in the House.
Okay.
So first of all, we have TPA. This is the Trade Promotion Authority. Mm-hmm. This is the process by which the House and the Senate will give authority to the president and outline what they wish to see in trade bills he negotiates. Is that about right for TPA?
Yeah, that's the gist of it. So I hear people say that, you haven't read the agreement that you just voted on. TPA is not the Trans-Pacific. This is not the trade agreement.
Right.
Anytime a trade agreement is dealt with, a president gets what's called TPA, Trade Promotion Authority. All that says is that Congress has oversight on the bill. In exchange for us getting oversight, it says that we cannot amend the bill, and you can't amend it because, if you think about it, these are negotiations that are very delicate, and if even one amendment is to the trade agreement, then the whole agreement's thrown out. So it says we have oversight. We can vote up or down on the agreement. It just cannot be amended. That's all TPA is.
Now, is there anything in the TPA bill that would be considered behind closed doors, unknown? There's some talk about some immigration language or this or that. TPA doesn't include any of those things because it's not a trade bill. It is merely the approval of the authority, right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. There is nothing like that. In fact, a lot of where this misinformation has come from, it's actually amazing. I saw Paul Ryan on Fox and Friends, and even the anchors of Fox and Friends did not really know the difference between TPA, TPP, TAA.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of the misinformation comes from, by the way, is I think it's a website. It's called Obamatrade.com or something like that. This is a website aimed at conservatives to say, look, Obama's taking over the federal government. It's the UN. It's all these conspiracy theories. But there was a very big expose. The guy that's running it is actually a far left progressive.
Yes, he is. I just read that yesterday too.
Yep,
he's a hardcore
far left progressive.
Yep. Okay. TPA. That's the authority. We'll come back to that in a second. Now, there's TAA. Uh-huh. This was voted on before TPA was voted on earlier last week in the House, and it did not pass. This is the assistance bill to assist those who might have their jobs displaced by a future trade agreement. Democrats demanded it be part of the TPA vote because they're afraid they might lose some of their union support if they agree to a free trade bill. Even with that, it did not pass the House. Is that about right on TAA?
Yeah, so TPA passed the House, 219 to 211, but the Democrats knew that most Republicans, or at least half Republicans, will not vote for TAA. I support TAA. I voted for it, and I'll get into what it is in a second. And so they made a tactical play to say if they sunk TAA, they could sink the whole bill.
Mm-hmm.
Called their bluff on it and actually outmaneuvered them. But what TAA is so trade agreements create jobs, and we can get into all the details of why, but they do. But there may be, in some cases, an acceptance that, okay, while it may create net jobs, maybe there are people that are displaced or moved or something like that. TAA is a very, very cheap, frankly, program that has existed for a very long time, that if somebody loses their job because of what is perceived as a trade agreement, there's actually very strong metrics in place, and it helps people to get the job skill training they need to find something else. And I think it's actually a very Republican program because of the metrics and stuff involved. But that is what TAA is. It is something that Democrats have always demanded as part of that.
TAA failed in the vote. TPA passed 219-211, as you said.
Right.
Is there going to be an effort in the House to revive TAA to get another vote on TAA as well?
There will be. So we just voted on a rule yesterday which allowed us to basically have TAA as an open question until the end of July. So it gives us a month and a half to work through this. And then we also, as Republicans, if we can pass the bill, now keep in mind there were 25 Democrats that still voted for TPA that allowed us to get to a majority. If we can hold that coalition together, we may try to pass TPA without TAA, and then the Senate would have to do the same thing because they passed TPA with TAA. So they would have to do the same thing, and then we would either go to conference or, just pass it that way. But at the end of the day, we called the Democrats' bluff on TAA, and I think they will end up coming around on this, and this will get done. But again, there's a lot of misinformation. Nothing on what we voted on was a tax increase or a secret deal or an immigration issue. It is a very basic thing.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger with us here. It's Ronnie and Scott on WROK, walking us through the different trade agreements, different trade legislation, free trade, TAA. Okay. TPA, that's the authority for the president to negotiate. It's pretty it's common, right? Every president except one since 1919 has had this authority, right?
Okay. Absolutely. This is a common thing. This is not a secret, crazy deal. This is common.
TAA we just went through. Now there's TPP. Now, this is different. This is an actual trade. It would be an actual trade deal, but it's not. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. It's not done being written. We don't know all the details yet because it's not finished. This is the TPP. This is the one where there's a tax hike to the immigration language, something, this, that. And it's nebulous because, again, if I'm correct, it's not even finalized yet. But the TPP would be the actual trade deal that would get a vote later on.
That's right. So this is in the process of being negotiated now. And by the way, passing of TPA helps us to get a better deal in this negotiation because right now some of these Asian countries are looking and saying, well, if Congress isn't even going to support you, we're not going to negotiate. Now, keep in mind, we have entered something like 4 trade agreements in the last 20 years, and China's entered something like 80 to 100. I mean, I think it's close. Those aren't the exact numbers. So TPP is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and that would be the actual trade agreement with some of these Asian countries that come forward, but it does not exist yet. So there's been a lot of, if you look at Drudge or you look at Obama trade, people are saying, Paul Ryan has said it's in secret and you've got to pass it to find out what's in it. Well, that's not true. What he was saying is we have to pass TPA so that we can get an idea, so that TPP even exists and so that we have an opportunity to read it and vote on it. So TPP, which doesn't exist yet, will be the agreement that when it is eventually finalized, we will be able to read and vote yes or no.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, have you decided, I don't know how you would perhaps since it's not done yet, but how you would potentially vote on TPP?
Well, obviously I'd have to read it. I'd have to take a look at the details. But my tendency is to support trade because in a district like the 16th that has such heavy manufacturing, 95% of the world's consumers don't live in our country. And if we want to export goods, we have to bring the tariffs that we export into, the countries that have these huge tariffs against us, we have to negotiate them knocking those tariffs down. It's beneficial to us because now we can sell goods to them, but it's beneficial to the receiving country because now the prices of goods given to their people is much less expensive, and so they can grow their economy. This is a mutually beneficial thing. So my tendency is to say yes, but of course I will read the agreement and ensure that this is good for the American worker.
We only have to look at this day in history. This is the anniversary of the signing of the Hawley Smooch Tariff Act, which people know perhaps from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Ben Stein. But the lesson of Hawley Smooch Tariff Act is we enacted these giant tariffs on incoming goods. In response, other countries around the world put giant tariffs on our goods, and it sank us, as Ben Stein said, deeper into the Depression.
That's right. That's right. And look, the tendency whenever the economy is bad, and I understand it, is to say, we're going to kill all foreign aid. We're going to just, we're going to put up the walls and just take care of ourselves. The problem is we enjoy an $18 trillion economy, and we love the fact that the poorest among us are the richest in other countries of the world. That doesn't come in isolation. That comes in engagement. NAFTA, everybody says, well, NAFTA led to all these jobs leaving, and I wouldn't disagree. I think there were some jobs that were accelerated because of NAFTA, but those jobs were leaving anyway. Some of those were very low-skilled manufacturing where people were making $5 or $6 an hour. that you can't, for instance, make shoes and pay somebody $15 to $20 an hour, which is what we demand in this country, and then be able to sell the shoes at those prices in the world market. But what we have gotten is intense chemical manufacturing, high-skilled manufacturing, and frankly, if you look at every free trade agreement that's been negotiated, America has a trade surplus as a result of that agreement. Every free trade agreement.